Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hey guys, Kirk Henderson. Welcome to an episode of Kirk Your Enthusiasm. Today I am joined by my buddy Anthony Irwin of the SB Nation Lakers podcast feed and website and all over the internet. You've heard him here before, but he's back again. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great. Your name, which I have heard before of the show, Kirk Your Enthusiasm, I've heard that before, and it still made me giggle. It's still an incredible freaking name.
Yeah, and it's funny because people make fun of me because I post so many different names of a podcast in the feed, and like this, these live shows, you do the same thing, but it's like most, at least your site has different people doing stuff. It's like me. Like our site is me, and I'm occasionally joined by Josh, who, if he doesn't have to work, doesn't work. But part of why we're here, it's we're recording on August 1st. I have no idea when I'm going to post this. I'm going out of town next week, and I wanted to kind of have some things out there, and this is the first time I feel like since the summer of 2019 that there's been true extended dead time, like honest to goodness nothing happening, kill ourselves on the internet because there's just not, like, everybody's paying attention to football. There's zero basketball shit happening. It is wild.
Man, I'm jealous that you feel that way, because for the Lakers stuff, it's been, it's every day or every couple days or so we get some kind of morsel of, well, the Lakers offered this to so-and-so and they didn't offer this to so-and-so.
That is precisely why I wanted to start this sort of mini series with you, because I'm probably going to try to talk to some of our different friends around the league. I want to stick to Western Conference because Eastern Conference just, it doesn't really matter as much relative to, where you finish in the standings. Yes, you play Eastern Conference teams, you play Western Conference teams 3 to 4 times, and it frankly matters more. And, just kind of a look back, and you can, chime in where it seems appropriate for you. So like the Lakers finished last year 11th in the West, and they were 33-49. They really faded down the stretch. Anthony Davis was hurt. It was just kind of a season that seemed,
awful.
Russell West. Yeah, it was like awful from start to finish. And, as everything with sports fans, it's like, even when things look terrible, you can find reasons in the preseason and in the summer before to get excited. But when the Lakers sort of pivoted from what seemed like a potential trade with the Kings only to go get Russell Westbrook, it was foreboding in a way that looks so obvious in hindsight for people who don't have, Lakers purple and gold tinted glasses. And you part of why you and I get along is like we both like we're skeptical of our team's decision making. I think would be a way to call it. So just sort of walk us through what happened last season, and then let's talk about what happened this season or this summer.
Yeah, so they made, essentially, it looked like they were going to be making a trade with the Sacramento Kings for Buddy Hield. They were going to send out Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell and maybe a pick. But they were going out and they were getting a shooter because the team prior was lacking in that regard. And right as it was literally announced, I think Woj actually tweeted out that that was a deal that was going to be made. Shams tweets out about a minute later, actually, no, the Lakers have just traded for Russell Westbrook. And it's always funny because Woj and Shams don't interact at all. Like, they don't. So we were just sitting there for a second, like, mom and dad are fighting and I don't know what to do here. And so, Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell both said that they thought that they were going to be Sacramento Kings, that they had, when those trades go down, it's not like we just hear about them and that's it. They had been hearing for a little while that they were going to be going to Sacramento. They were getting ready for that phase of their lives. And next thing you know, they're in Washington. Now, there has been some pushback on that characterization of it. Some people from the Lakers have kind of said, well, it's not like the Russell Westbrook thing just happened. Those were also conversations that were taking place over an amount of time. And but anyway, that all doesn't matter. What matters at the end of it is that the Lakers thought, because of a conversation that Anthony Davis and LeBron and Russell Westbrook had, that Russ was going to buy into some of the things that could make him fit better as a third best player on a team. And he didn't do those things. The things that he promised, oh yeah, I'll work hard off the ball. I'll set screens. I'll cut. That didn't happen. I'll focus on defense. I'll play some defense. And that didn't happen. And I think while everything can kind of be traced back to that decision in terms of why last season was the failure that it was, I think everybody involved handled their situations as poorly as they possibly could have. I thought Frank Vogel coached a really poor season. I thought LeBron was his most passive aggressive when I think the Lakers really needed hands-on leadership from him. I think they needed him to step in and tell Russ, like, this isn't cool, the way that you're playing. He's not that kind of a leader. And then Anthony Davis was available for 40 games. And for half of the ones that he was available for, he was a little pudgy. Now, some people want to call him bulky because he bulked up to play center.
He looked weird. Like, weird is the only way I can describe it, because and Anthony Davis is an interesting pivot point. So I do want to talk about him more at length later. But it's like, for anybody that may not remember him in college, he was a generational athlete. His body he looked like the next kind of styled superstar. He was thin but strong, and he looked very odd, like late stage Patrick Ewing. It was very confusing. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
He wasn't very highly recruited coming out of high school. You can see, like, in his junior year, he was a point guard. so like, and somehow he maintained, his hand-eye coordination. He maintained his foot-eye coordination. He still moved like a guard in college. And that's what got everybody as riled up as they were on him. And, so there's essentially two, I guess, trains of thought here when it comes to AD last year. Some people, those who are pro AD, say that he bulked up to play center and that affected every part of his game. There are others who are, I guess, anti-AD here, because if somebody's pro, somebody has to be anti, I guess. Those people say that he looks slow in ways that just muscle shouldn't do to you, and muscle doesn't affect your shot in the way that his seemed to. And when he trimmed down, we saw special AD. We saw above the rim AD. Like, before he got hurt, he was barely getting above the rim. Like, everything was layups. Everything was going around the defense, not through and over. It was just kind of, when he would finish, he would just kind of do the soft lay-in thing rather than finish anything really with force. So you would think if you bulked up, you would be doing more things with force, and he wasn't. So if I have to pick a side of this equation, I am of the opinion that he didn't like he won a championship and kind of said, all right, I'm good here. And that has been it since. I understood the first off season that he wouldn't necessarily be in incredible shape because they had just won a championship a month prior.
Sure, yeah, the season just started up again. Yeah.
And then everybody's expected and ready to go a month later. So like I don't really hold that first season against him, but last year the way that he looked at the beginning of the season was pretty uninspiring. And I think this year is going to be really interesting. Did he hear all of the noise about, for coming off of the championship? There was like, is he the best player in the league? Is he the best center? Is he better than? I remember there was one day on Twitter where it was like, is he better than Tim Duncan? Is he Hakeem? Like, what are we looking at here? So you go from that to now. I'll be interested when the ESPN releases their player rankings. Is he in the top 10? Is he in the top 15? Like, what are we looking at here with AD? And it's because of his own approach to last season. Some of it's the injury, and I think some of it's approach. So anyway, long story long now at this point.
That's okay.
They Frank, even while he had Carmelo Anthony at center for some lineups, he was having guards essentially go over screens and guide players to the rim where Carmelo was waiting for him, which is just bad coaching, and the all of the role players that the Lakers signed, only Monk really played above minimum status, and they needed multiple guys to outdo that. The Caruso thing was disastrous, where they essentially convinced themselves that he is not a $9 or $10 million player. They let him walk for nothing, and they instead bring back THT, and THT was just flat out bad last year. So I think up and down, you when you ask yourself, how can a team go from a championship team 2 years ago, still have the core of that team intact in LeBron and AD, and now be on the outside looking in potentially of a play-in heading into a season, and you still have LeBron and AD? A lot has to go wrong, and everything went wrong last year.
So now we're kind of, staring at the face of an offseason where the Lakers they don't really have a lot of maneuverability. They lost, what's his name, up there to the Kings, which was a shocking signing. Monk, who Monk was, I don't know if he was a bright spot, but like Monk is
their third best player last year.
He's young enough too to where it's just like, okay, there's something here. Like he fits that sort of like X factor, and he left. And then so right now, as far as I understand, the narrative is just trying to figure out what the heck happens with Russell Westbrook, because anybody that follows the NBA, we don't need to get into detail about it, but anybody that follows the NBA, Westbrook agent basically fired Russ because he's like, I can't deal with this anymore.
Publicly, at least, yeah.
Yeah, it's really an uncomfortable situation, and the Lakers are still
We've never seen that before either.
Ever.
Like, that was wild.
And that's not like crazy. It's a Lakers thing, is kind of a byproduct. It's more of a Russ thing. And he's just a truly fascinating and not really a great way player these days. And, I guess the first kind of question is, do you think he starts the season on the team? Like, what is going on there?
So I would probably put the odds at him being on the team at like 30-70. That I think it's 70% chance he gets moved still at this point. The Lakers still have options to move him. It's just a matter of whenever they decide to move that second first rounder with him. So I think if it really comes down to it, I think they do wind up trading him and 2 firsts. It's just a matter of which package they prefer. Would they still have access to Kyrie? If not, do they prefer Indiana's package, which is Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, or do they prefer Utah's package, which is like Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic? So it's like they just are basically at this point deciding on which of the bad options are they going to go here with, because there isn't really a perfect one. If you trade for Kyrie from a talent perspective, you say, awesome. A first rounder essentially for Kyrie Irving entering his like age 31 or 32 season is incredible value, but
it's something new.
Yeah. Well, it's also incredible value in a vacuum, but as Kyrie doesn't believe in the vacuum of space, it is not incredible value. So I you're looking at a situation here where you're hoping that Kyrie recommits to basketball, or you're hoping that Mike Conley stays healthy, or you're hoping that Miles Turner and Buddy Hield stay healthy. So there isn't a path here that I think puts the Lakers into title contention, or not title contention, but they aren't going to be the title favorite in any way next year,
sure,
no matter what they do here. But how seriously can they contend for it? And I think that's what they're deciding, what those 2 first rounders are worth. And I personally, I say give LeBron and AD a puncher's chance.
Yeah,
that's all I'm
right.
really hoping
you get
for.
65 if you get 70 games combined out of one of the two. It's like you might not need to have more than 60 games with both of them playing, but stand a pretty good chance with 2 very good basketball players on the floor.
Yeah. Just essentially become that team that nobody wants to play in the playoffs, right? That's the upside to this offseason, is can the Lakers put themselves back in that position? Because
there's
last
something
year,
to be said about lower expectations, like being a title. Being a 5 through 8 team that can punch somebody in the mouth in the playoffs is kind of, it's not more fun if you have a real championship team, but in terms of if you're coming off a really shitty season, like being the spoiler is fun.
Yeah, no, well, it'll be interesting because I don't know if you can ever not have expectations when you have LeBron on your team. So those 2 concepts are going to be kind of butting up against each other. But I think this idea that you're heading into a season where getting into the playoffs is kind of the base level expectations. And once you get there, and if you do anything when you get there, that becomes playing with house money. And that's essentially what my analysis is going to be heading in. The Kyrie situation is funny because I keep on getting asked why didn't the Lakers include their 2 first rounders early on, right? And why hasn't this trade happened? And to a certain extent, I agree. Like if they had an opportunity to include 2 first round picks, one being to move Russ and one bringing Kyrie back, I think that's a trade that you do. If you have to take Joe Harris, cool. He's a great shooter. He helps LeBron be LeBron. Yeah. I personally, if that was something that they could have done, I think they should have done it as soon as they had that opportunity. But I don't necessarily know that they ever had that opportunity, given everything that Brooklyn was dealing with at that same time, right? Like you have Parker, you have your kid. I have Avery. I'm going to have a second kid here in a little bit. Kids think that what they are dealing with is the most important thing in the world. And we as parents tend to have more important things than Disney Plus taking a half hour to get from one episode of whatever kids show it is to the next. And so like, as we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with, Avery is sitting there saying, Dad, remote, Dad, remote, Dad, remote. And I'm like, Avery, hold on. I promise. It's counting down. You have 20 seconds until the next Spider-Man episode. You're going to be okay. And like, I feel like that's been Brooklyn this whole time is Kyrie keeps calling, the Lakers keep calling. They're like, hey, can we get this deal done? Can we get this deal done? Can we get this deal done? And meanwhile, the Nets are saying, what, like a top 3 player in the NBA just told us he doesn't want to be here anymore. This is the thing that actually matters. Let us figure this out. And then we'll come back and we'll debate whether or not the Lakers want to include that first round pick, the second first round pick. And until we get the resolution on Kevin Durant, I don't think there was ever an opportunity for the Lakers to make a Kyrie deal.
Sure. So if I'm hearing you correctly, your kind of expectations for this season is that something happened with Russ, and then we can sort of soft pivot into having maybe not necessarily championship aspirations off the bat, but a renewed sense of, I mean, Lakers fans always have hope. So it's probably just some expectations of a more entertaining season. And
I like how you
wins.
say that, like, oh, you idiots with your hope.
No, it's not, because it's like, when you deal with this all the time, it's like Cowboys fans are like this too. It's like when you have such a massive fan base, you can always find a segment of people to convince themselves of anything.
Right.
And when you got LeBron and Anthony Davis, it's a pretty good pivot to an argument point, because it's like, I'm looking at the Western Conference last year. So the Warriors won 53 games, Mavericks won 52, Denver won 49, I'm sorry, 48. Jazz won 49. So it's like that's 4 teams separated by 5 games. So it's like I bring that up in the sense of, a lot of weird stuff can shake. So if you get an opportunity, and like some of this is difficult for me to talk about, and I keep referencing this, and I think it's a little bit of an underplayed angle. I really want to see it like my team's schedule. And I think schedule can be a very interesting determining point because the way they bunch games now, where it used to be you'd kind of have 4 games spread out over the course of the season. Occasionally you'd see back-to-backs. If you go look at last year's schedule, like the Mavericks played the Pelicans like 4 times in quick succession relative to 82 games.
Yeah.
And so like if there's opportunities in the schedule to really either get the shit kicked out of you or like take big steps on opponents. And so it's like at the moment, I think sort of an expectation of maybe like 4 to 8 for Lakers, understanding that, injuries, whatever, actually makes a lot of sense where it's like once you, at least right now, because if you get a particular package, like I didn't really know that the Lakers might be interested in that Jazz thing. Like Bojan Bogdanović can play, even though he's 33. Like that man, I want him. Like the Mavericks probably can't get him, but like that's, and I still think Mike Conley has something in the tank. I think he was hurt in the playoffs. So it's just, it's going to be like injuries end up being probably the single biggest factor that we don't talk about often enough. Clippers, Denver, and who else? Clippers and Denver were just like decimated by injuries, and they're going to both be better anyways this year. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting, measuring stick for the Lakers because it's like so much has been focused on like what could happen with the deal, but how the basketball that they actually might play. AD seems to be the single biggest X factor where if he looks different than last season, then it's going to be challenging. His shot is so weird because he shot like 40% from 3 in the bubble and then since just hasn't really been able to hit much from distance. There's one more bubble related guy because this is Mavericks, because again, this is a Mavericks podcast. I think my listeners are going to be irritated with me, but guys, there's nothing happening in Mavs land, and I don't want to.
Well, I do want to talk to you at some point about this Braylon and Jalen Brunson investigation. Like what?
So I had. Let's just talk about that real quick. Fred Katz came on my show a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Everything that's happening from that is actually not Mavericks centered. It is other teams apparently very pissed about how this went down because if the Knicks were to actually become good, his dad. Well, that part's a little different. Let's put that to the side. Yeah. So the bigger concern seems to be that if the Knicks get away with this scot-free, then if they actually become decent, then they can basically tamper without they have to figure out a way to punish this because it's like Lakers don't really tamper because the Lakers exist in Los Angeles. Like the city of Los Angeles existing is their form of leverage for players who want to come play in Southern California. Mm-hmm. New York, you would think it'd be a big boon, but their owner is a doofus and they haven't been able to win in like 30 years. So if they're able to turn it around, that becomes like a bully in the room that other teams don't want to be with. Like the Mavericks fuck this up. Like that's kind of what the answer. And so it's like, every like 4th degree aggregation I've seen is like talking about the Mavericks complaining. Mavericks haven't really they've been really busy spent on letting us Mavericks fans know that Jalen Brunson wasn't a good long-term fit and we should probably stop complaining. Which in a 50,000 foot view, potentially right, but it still doesn't back away from the fact that they still screwed it up. They could have, anyways. But I do want to know one thing.
You can't lose that guy for nothing.
Nothing.
Right. Like
it's
the Lakers with Caruso, where they said like, oh, well, $40 million is a lot to spend on Alex Caruso. It's like, okay, fine. Then reallocate those $40 million to somebody who can help you to the extent that Caruso
like a connective. He's like that. Like Caruso's fascinating because he's been a connective piece in an important way for 2 teams now because the Bulls fell apart when he wasn't able to play. Anyway. Speaking of connected pieces, there was a guy that you did not like on the Lakers championship roster. And I had our mutual friend, Daman Rangula, basically lecture. He said, you've been listening to Anthony too much because I think the JaVale McGee signing to Dallas might be the worst signing of the offseason in terms of dollars spent. Not that he's a terrible player. It's just who else was wanted 34-year-old JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
What did you think about him during his time with the Lakers? Because I remember, and Diamond told me I'm just wrong about this, but I remember like Lakers fans being pissy because they would start off games down because he couldn't really protect the rim, and then he just didn't finish games. Am I full of shit?
It's not necessarily it was a JaVale McGee specific problem. It's that he's not Anthony Davis. So like when the Lakers would start, they would start these games with a suboptimal lineup, and then you would get a more optimal lineup here with AD at the 5 and the additional spacing that allows for, and he's just a better defensive presence at the 5 than JaVale is. And like if JaVale was basically coming in as the second shift in the first quarter type of center, and the Lakers already had some kind of a lead built because they started the game with a more optimal lineup, then JaVale would have been fine. I actually really enjoyed JaVale's minutes in a vacuum. The problem is that they all got compared to all of his minutes are just inherently compared to AD minutes at the 5.
Okay.
And nobody looks good, especially that AD.
Yeah.
That AD, the title year AD, you wanted that guy at the 5 as much as possible. So, yeah, I think of the Lakers centers that they have had, during the LeBron era, JaVale is probably not AD. He is maybe one of the better ones. I liked him. I enjoyed his time more than Drummond.
Sure.
I enjoyed his time. I think last year he was just a flat out better than Dwight Howard. So that's worth pointing out. So he was signed for more than the minimum is my concern. That's the one that right. Do I have that right?
I mean, they had the taxpayers mid-level exception.
Yeah.
He didn't get all of it, but he got a significant chunk, and it's a 3-year deal. He will be 37 by the time the deal is over. And people don't realize this. McGee has asthma. Like, this is not, there's a reason he rarely plays over 12 to 15 minutes. He is not the answer at a center spot. He is a rotation player who will soak up minutes for you. Now, that was great.
For the Lakers, it was like he would play 15 minutes, Dwight would play 15 minutes, and then AD would come and wreck your world for the rest of it when he was at center. And like that, that's how that worked. The reason I found myself so frustrated with JaVale is that the Lakers would start these games down because he's not AD. Like when he was out there in not starters minutes, and he never closed. So when he was out there in a vacuum, it was fine. But when he's playing against the other team's best lineup, like their starting lineup or their closing lineup, he tended to suffer. And like you're talking about, if he was out there longer, if Dwight was in foul trouble or if AD wasn't available and you needed JaVale to go out there and play more than 15, 20 minutes, you would really see the precipitous decline right after minute number 20. Minute 21 was always a disaster.
Okay, that's interesting because one of the things that we ran into as Mavs fans in the playoffs is just they started the year, and I kid you not, there were 6 centers on the 2021-22 roster. 6. By the end of the year, they had moved on from 2 of them and signed others. No one worked. Like, no one worked. They played at the end of the year. By the time they were playing against the Golden State Warriors, they were playing only Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. So the bigger picture, like kind of 82 game answer, the regular season answer is that's kind of what I think McGee's point will be. Like, he won't play in the playoffs. Like, the Mavericks played McGee off the floor. That's one of the reasons why I was so irritated by the signing. Like, they played McGee.
You did this to him. It was like the Lakers. The Lakers turned Russell Westbrook into a meme and then gave valuable players the way to bring in Russell Westbrook. Yeah.
So I think that's probably why I'm more irritated than anything McGee will actually give up, because it's just like we watched Luka and granted, Luka makes everybody look stupid, so it's kind of a thing. But that's good to know. So I'm maybe I will warm myself to the McGee minutes. Like, they did make a public declaration that he was going to be the starter, which kind of doesn't make sense to me, but that's a different thing all around. I have kept you for longer than I intended to. Is there anything else that we should like touch on at this point in the summer? I mean, there's, we're kind of making chicken salad out of chicken shit because it's August 1st, and like we get Euro Eurobasket stuff coming up soon. Do the Lakers have any international players?
No.
Okay.
No,
so you would have fun with this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just kind of sit back and watch. No, I do think the Mavericks are interesting because, you lose a player like Brunson and almost more importantly, you don't get anything back for. Like I think the loss of Brunson is bigger than the gain of Brunson in New York, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
And I think because of the loss of Brunson, people are really down on Dallas, but they're kind of one of those teams I'm watching out of the corner of my eye because I so much has been made of Luka staying in shape and getting in shape and all of this stuff. And there's even the beer image, right? The infamous beer image from last year's postseason, which look, I enjoyed. I myself enjoy beer. And I think at some point in a player's career, they reach that area where that noise gets loud enough and they either kind of accept the noise and say, what, screw you people, I am who I am, the Russell Westbrook approach essentially, or they listen to the noise and they take that step forward after changing the thing that everybody is hoping that they change. And I think if that is the direction that they go in here, I really can't wait to see Luka pissed for the entirety of a season. That's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and that's where because we started off the show talking about how we really haven't had an off season in years. And this is the closest thing to where probably the summer of 2019, when Luka came in that year, 2019, 2020, his second year, he came in and the Mavericks got off to a 16-5 start. Yep. Since then, they've started out the next 2 years pretty poor. Luka was out of shape both times. And I think that, like the Mavericks won after the new year last year, they went 35-12, which is preposterous. And I've been trying to explain to people, like, they cannot win. Like, if they win at a 75% clip, you're telling me they're going 61-20 or 61-21. Like, that's the Dallas Mavericks. Like, that'd be insane. But if they get off to a decent start, can they win 50 games again? And to me, the answer has been yes. And a lot of that starts and ends with Luka because he put up numbers but it wasn't the same. Even if you get into the numbers, might even the efficiency, you'll see certain things like,
I just watched Russell Westbrook, dude. Like I know what empty numbers look like.
It's a little thing where it's like he still played really well, but he didn't play up to his own standard, and that's the difference. And so I think if they get off to a reasonable start, they could win. Like I have their floor kind of at 45 games, and then I have their ceiling probably at 55 games. A 10-game disparity is pretty wide, and I have a fair number of fans that I interact with regularly who think I'm not being fair, but it's just having that much kind of depend on Luka is the challenging point, whereas Brunson was the stabilizing factor. Like if Luka were to go down with a high ankle sprain and miss 15 games, they're going to have a hard time. That's duh. Like, one of the funny things that I saw something about the fact that the Ja Morant-less Grizzlies last year won more games without Ja last year than the Cleveland Cavaliers won without LeBron James his entire first run in Cleveland. So it's like that, when you got a superstar of that caliber, part of that is to be expected. Anyways, I'm meandering along. One of my Mavs fans friends, I'm just tagging you in this tweet, just posted a clip saying, "I don't know how Lakers fans sat through this their entire season."
No,
it's a driving kick from Russ to Dwight Howard for three.
Dwight was a better 3-point shooter by a lot than AD last year. By a lot. By the end of the year, AD wasn't shooting him. No, I think amazing. With the funny one with Russ is there's that video that goes around every so often, especially every time there's the latest like morsel of news or morsel of rumors regarding the Lakers' attempts at trading for Kyrie Irving. And it's always the same like kind of 2.5 minute clip of Russ doing hilarious things in a Lakers uniform. And it makes you like the thing that dawns on me every time is there's no replay. There's no like there's 2 minutes and 30 seconds worth of terrible Russell Westbrook plays in 1 year. It wasn't over like a 5 or 6 year stretch where you just had that one player everybody kind of picked on for not being as good as you wanted them to be. No, this was a single year, and it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I bet there was some stuff on the cutting room floor. That's what's wild.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. You can find all of Anthony's stuff on the what is the name of your it's just Silver Screen and Roll.
Yeah.
Like the podcast feed. Yeah, you get, so
search Silver Screen and Roll and you find all our stuff on
we're
Spotify.
Really good at SEO at Vox too. So it's like this stuff all pops. If you use like the right combination of keywords, it definitely shows up. You record at least once a day, sometimes twice, even in the off season. I tried to emulate you, and then I've ran out of shit to talk about, literally. So I just sort of stopped. One of my favorite digs was another Mavs website that doesn't like me. Said at least I don't put out a mediocre podcast every day, to where I really want to make that the tagline underneath. Which is because guy's not wrong, but hey, there's a thirst for this stuff because we all like listening to things in the background. So thank you for taking part of your day, and you and I, I'm sure we'll touch base again during the season
soon, as soon as possible. I always love chatting.
All right, talk soon, Anthony. Have a good day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.